Greetings, everyone. Lumberg here. Happy Friday to everyone. I would love to get into guides, but I will do that. But first, I have to give an update on this saga that continues about mergers and equality in the game. As many of you have noticed, there was an announcement that came out on the official Camel Discord page by Princess of Doom, essentially addressing the fact that, look, the bug that happened between 457 and 309, we got a lot of questions. Thank you guys, because you're the ones that have pushed forward for this. And the resulting answer was, look, it was a bug. Their engineers went back and fixed everything to make sure it never happens again. And then they've specifically addressed this point number 2 here. Basically, regarding the problem of some video makers, allegedly me. So I went to Princess of Doom and asked her, hey, I've looked at this point. Is this what you're saying that I did? And she basically confirmed that I basically confirmed that yes, this is basically suggesting that I am spreading false information and rumors, and that's the act that they would take legal action against if I continue. Let's read this. So, rumors saying that the cause of this battle. So if you look at this, quotes means that it's a direct quote from something that I said. On account of some servers being randomly controlled by the dev team to change the game's data. I have never said that. I've never mentioned anything to that point. I have raised questions about why the dev team picked certain servers to be merged. That does not mean anything to the fact that the dev team changed the game's data. Maybe it's a translation issue. Maybe it's a looking in the mirror issue. Why would you think I've suggested that from my videos? I went back, so I just said maybe I suggested this subconsciously. I went back, checked the transcript, so you can automatically look at the automatically generated transcript from YouTube, and search for anything mentioning on account of, randomly controlled, dev team, games data. None of those things popped up in the search, and I did not say that. So I said, hey, if this is directed at legal action towards me, please clarify, because you haven't named anyone. I haven't got a cease and desist order, and I haven't been named here. Princess of Doom did clarify it was directed at me spreading false information and rumors. So let's dive into that a little bit further and then see, what does this mean? Does this mean that I can stop looking into this matter and stop asking questions? So we'll look into that. Before we go there, I just wanted to show this right here. So you can see here's the response of the community response of this message and how it was received. And I've highlighted all the negative ones here, all these negative responses. So you can see, look at those responses, right? So all of these are poop, vomit, emotionless, eyebrow raised, thumbs down, middle finger, laughing out loud, angry, finger saying no. Only 9 yeses, maybe Camel employees. So you can see that the response of this message was really poorly received. That means if the intent of Camel was to publish this and say, look, this is the end of the conversation, there's nothing to be discussed anymore, that was not well received, Camel. Let's look at then, from a perspective of my legal liabilities. Of course, I'm not a lawyer. I went and did some research, did some basic research about what is the legal recourse that Camel can pursue, and it would be defamation. Defamation requires these components, and these need to be proved. And what I've learned from this is that the burden of proof is pretty high on the case of the person bringing the suit, in this case Camel, and against me, right? So there is also, it's hard to prove defamation where opinions are being raised. And if you look at the statements that are being here, first of all, I didn't make those statements. So it's very easy to defend that because it can be proven with truth. And then some of the other statements, let's say they mentioned about, there being 4 mergers or 2 mergers, all of those I can fix with a retraction, which I have done in some of my descriptions. I've said, look, at the time there was no information about the number of mergers, and I've proven that information was not available by looking at, some of the style or AOZ Wiki's video where some of those merger informations, when he did the video, was not announced. So clearly, and there's an edit button where those were made. So as far as, but that defeats the whole purpose. That's not a, mistruth or statement. It is a opinion or a guess. It's an observation that I thought it could be 9 worlds are in one nation. That's the main thing to look at. You know, if you look at it, there's a high burden of defamation for, I don't think public officials apply, but I wanted to show this, that yes, it can still apply to social media. You can be sued for this. However, can Camel sue me for what I've said? And I did look at some cases of when did this happen? This did happen. Evany, another game, went and this is an article that I found out. So Bruce is a blogger that posted this, and he posted some pretty, outrageous, not outrageous, but pretty strong statements against Evany, right? So if you look at it here, some of the statements that he's made is that they are they are a scam. They're promulgating spyware. And they are, so he's published. So the level of things that he's published is completely different from me raising questions and stating my opinion about Camel. So he was sued, and I did reach out to him to see what happened with that suit. You can see this suit where they tried to sue it, but they're going to have a tough time because Evany, if you looked at any of the ads, they do some of these things that it's kind of being alleged, and they would have a tough time. Another thing that's in my favor is the whole aspect of discovery. In order for them to say that I am making false statements, they would have to prove that their statements are true, which will be hard for them to do without releasing their coveted game data. So you can go through this Bruce case and see that, yep, he was served a lawsuit. So there is a chance that they may do it. I even looked into some of the jurisdiction. They would probably have to sue me using the U.S. rules, and U.S. rules are very hard to prove defamation. Okay, so now that we have that, all that means is that, I'm making a clear statement that Camel, look, these are my opinions. These are my observations. Everything that I'm talking about is raising questions to make this game better. I enjoy this game. I have really enjoyed making guides for this game and helping people. What I am trying to do is to create a fair and equitable system of, really clarifying why there are locked nations and why those locked nations have more frequent mergers. And if some of the responses that has been given by Camel are unsatisfactory, until those responses are satisfactory, this will continue. So these are questions. I am not making rumors. These are opinions, and these are observations of questions. I'm not saying that Camel has done anything wrong. What I'm saying is Camel needs to explain themselves to make the customers who you serve, who are here. You wouldn't have a company if it weren't for the customers spending money. Those people that are spending money, deserve to know and be in an environment that is fair. So no matter how you look at it, a nation that has gotten 0 mergers against a nation that has gotten 9 nations into it. Doesn't matter how many mergers they had, what iterations of mergers they had, but there are 9 nations into it. So let's illustrate. Then let's come up to the next point. So while all of this is happening, guess who we got matched with in Void? In Void, we got matched with one of the nations that is a main topic of the videos. That is nation 457. Of course, this could be coincidence. It seems like a terrible coincidence to clearly, I don't have a, sense of importance about myself. It's been amazing to see the support from all the people, where all I'm doing is raising questions and doing things that they were already doing. But it's really interesting because this is important to Camel enough that they, released some in-game messages. They've released some announcements on their official Discord page. Why would you match 285 against 457, a world that is almost 200 worlds apart? How does that make sense? So in the whole scheme of things, to say that, 457 could match with a world of the caliber of 285, which has lost 1 void to the very, very strong nation of 219. Only 1 void we have lost. Look at this score. So this is really crazy, and we're going to dive into it a little bit deeper. So let's go into it even further. So you can see, let's just go into some of the phases of the battle. So when day 1 started at the end of Tuesday at reset, this was Kill Zombies event. You can see that, it's pretty close, but it's really impressive that a nation that young is able to keep up with 285. Usually we lead or it's about the same. Monsters are tricky. You can't really increase your lead because there is a set number of monsters by each world, and the refresh rate is set. So it's really hard unless you're hitting many low level monsters in many different active accounts. So end of day one, pretty close. You can see that the difference is about 64 million. Okay, this looks like it's end of day two. This was building phase. So you can see in building phase, it looks pretty clear that it's still close. It's about, a little less than 200 million difference in points. And then slowly, that's where we saw that, okay, recruiting phase hit, and that's where things started to go wild. So these are just some screenshots of recruiting phase. You can see clearly, really, really high lead. At some point, it's been about 3 billion lead. And these are some of the recruiting points and some of these. Look at these recruiting points. I've never, encountered this. Now, some of the people that have faced these nations, 442, that others have made a video about, 457 that people have faced, they've alleged that, this is normal. In this recruiting phase is where the opponent builds this huge lead and it's really hard to take over. So I wanted to look further and say, what the heck is this number and what do you have to do to get it, right? So if you look at that number, and assuming that's a C 38 person, so they're going to build T12, and most likely they're going to build T12 laser or armored soldiers, it gives 450 points per one unit. So basically, if you build a laser or EMP cannon at T12, it will give you 450 times 10 or 4,500 points. So one unit, but EMP is 10 units. All right. So basically, I took the math and said, if I take this top guy's point, 700 million almost, and divide it by 450, this is what you get: 155, 501. Right. So this is how many, or 450 and 10. So this is how many EMP cannons he recruited. So that's divided by 4,500, sorry. 155,000 EMP cannons will give you that amount of points. Then I said, let's look at that even further. So I asked somebody in our nation that has T12, that has a lot of boosts. So while national recruitment skill was on, while some of the boosts was on, what is his recruit time for one T12 EMP laser or Ultima EMP cannon? And it's about 16 minutes and 53 seconds, you can see here, which translates to about 1,000 seconds. So I did the math, and you can see here that clearly that the recruitment speed boost up is pretty high. He has some pretty high level heroes. 153% isn't the best, but give or take, that's about standard. So what that basically amounted to, and I'll show you here if we do the math, is it came to be 1,800 days of speeds. That's 1,800 days. The most speed up you can get is an 8 hour. So 1,800 days of speed up to make that would cost basically 7,200 8-hour troop speeds. 7,200. How is it possible that somebody can afford this level of speed up every void or every frenzy? So, that is a interesting question. I just did the math, so how is it possible that this many speed ups can be afforded? Because we have some pretty heavy spenders and they can't approach this level unless you've been saving up. So it is possible to, let's say you've saved up for many, many months. I don't even know that you can buy that many consistent packs on a consistent basis. So if you're repeating that, and if this nation is repeating and building these 3 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion point leads, how is it possible? It might be possible. There might just be really rich people that want to spend that, and you can spend as much gold as you want to do those events and do it. The real question, though, is back to the original one. Why is it fair that if this world 457, has these mega spenders, why is it fair that they get matched, or why is it fair that they get merged? right? So the question remains, so a lot of the things that have been purported by Camel has been, look, this nation, we look at the active player list and the relative strengths, and we make fair decisions about who gets a merger and who doesn't. Does anything about this list, anything about these rankings, does anything here look fair? I don't think so. I mean, we have a healthy nation. We've been merged once. We've been playing longer than 457 has by almost a year or so. So I'm raising the question. Help me understand, Camel. How the heck is this fair that the nation with so many active accounts and so many active people, we've never faced a deficit. So this is you can see currently where we are. We're at a 3.1 billion deficit. If Nation 457 decides that, hey, let's just all bubble for void, that we're not going to fight anyone, they win. There's nothing we can do. With this recruiting lead, there is one more event left, which is gathering. And in gathering, you're not going to, recover any of that margin. So starting off void with a 3 billion deficit where people have spent, let's look at the ranking here. If you look at in the phase, I used all my speeds, and how did I get this number? I didn't speed up anything in Frenzy. I didn't really speed up anything last void except for getting the gold. So this is basically an accumulation of a couple of months of speeds, and I use them to see how close we can get. We tried to see how close can we get to matching this monstrous nation of 457, and it's pretty telling. So let's just go and look at that world a little bit further. So if you go into the map and you go into the mini map, you can't access 457. We'll try to, you can't, because it's a locked world. Again, the question is, why can't you access it? So if we're going to be facing a nation in void, shouldn't we be able to kind of place a spy city, do the research like is the normal strategy for all the voids? So the question remains, why can't we do that, Camel? So we know we can't do it. Here it is. Nascent channel data is already full, right? And if it's already full, then why the heck are they still getting mergers, these nations? Now, we know that you can't access it that way, but we also know that you can access it by going to some of the surrounding nations that have merged into it. So, for instance, we know that I think 450 and 446 have merged into it. So if we can find them, here's 446, we can go into 457. And how do I know that? You can see here, it says Nation 457. And we know that 9 nations have merged into it. That is a verifiable observation. So in this world now, we can see some of the rankings, and let's just take a look at these rankings. So if you look at it, how do we fight and win this, right? So and it's a difficult situation. If we win, then Camel will allege that, look, they're not that strong, you were able to beat them. But that's not the point. If we win, it's going to be by sacrificing or spending a lot and overcoming a 3 billion deficit. If we lose, then that's okay. If we lose, then nobody likes to lose. That's the whole point. But let's take a look at some of these cities, right? So you can see there is 12 cities of C38. I mean, that strength is incomprehensible. And every single one of these cities, except for 2 of them, you can see here, this one and this one, the one in Ace, is all in one alliance CFA. So this alliance CFA, if we go into it, they've been busy. I think they have, look at that kill ranking, 5 billion. And then let's look at their power ranking, 2.7 billion. So that's a really high for a nation of 457, of the 400s. That's a huge nation. So this alliance is going to be hard to beat. And I don't know how you make up 3 billion points in void without, attacking wherever those main nations are. And how do you defend against 10 C38s at you? It's really hard to, to defend against T12 troops. So it's interesting, and you can see, this is an unusual nation. This you can see in their Elite War rankings, they're almost top 100, which is unusual for a 400 nation. And then some of these other ones are really telling about the power of spending. You can see here, look at these officer rankings. I mean, that is amazing. You can see here, if you look at some of the Titan ranking, oh my goodness. I mean, these are some strong, strong players. You can see here from the island ranking, like, wow, a lot of spending is happening. So by any metric, if you look at spending, if you look at, BP, if you look at players, if you look at kills, if you look at just plain power, any metric that you look at, 457 is a thriving, a world. Now, does it matter that they're in civil war? No. Does it matter that, should we reward people that are in civil war to by giving them a merger? Does that mean, that would mean that, okay, let's everyone else that wants a merger, do you have to get into a civil war and reduce your BP to get a merger? None of those things are guaranteed. None of those things are proven, and none of those things are confirmed. All we know is that this nation has gotten, way more mergers and is way stronger compared to everybody else around them, that they're able to compete and have a 3 billion lead against a nation that is, 200 worlds older than them, and a healthy nation, for that. This is a proud nation, 285, that has only lost one void. And let's even look at further. Not only have we only lost one void, but let's look at the global conquest ranking. We are ranked first in global conquest. Now, I don't think that's going to last, but you can see here, if you look at the ranking and look at preliminaries, look at that, first overall. So by no means is 285 a easy world or a inactive world, and they are having a struggle. 285 is having a struggle of competing with 457. So, am I making any allegations? No, I'm raising questions, Camel. Am I making an opinion? Yes, I think this is unfair. I'm raising questions that you clarify why 457, is allowed that many mergers, and when will you make it right? So again, the answer comes back to, if you want these lock nations to have unfair advantages, then go back to making the world separate. Make the locked nations only match with the locked nations, and make unlocked nations match with unlocked nations to make it fair. But none of this looks fair. None of this looks remotely like the direction that will get you more interested players and more spending. The last thing I'm going to share is, in doing a little bit more research, these games, they prey on people's desire to spend, right? So if you look at it here, this is a news story about this guy that embezzled money from his company and spent $1 million on Game of War. His main expenditure was on this Game of War, and he spent $1 million on the game from those embezzled funds. And one of the things that he said is that this is what led him to his desire to do well in this game, is kind of what prompted him to keep getting this money. So, games like these that allow players to play for free, and then basically, in order for them to beat and compete, you have to spend. This is a heavy spend for a lot of people. There's you can see it here that, people spend a lot, and I'm curious to know what would be the average spend of a person on, the Camel Games platforms, because it's hard to give up. So I've tried not to spend. All these players that are saying that they're not going to spend, Camel knows that. Camel knows that you're going to go back and still spend, or they can see your credit cards and they can see their revenues coming in. So, I said I wasn't going to spend, but I still did. I did this bingo event, right? So it is an addiction. You've spent some time here, you've built this, it's hard to walk away from. So I did the bingo event. The best answer is going to be keep the pressure on Camel, and ask for those solutions. Look, I like this game. I'd like to continue playing it. I just don't want it to be in a fair situation, where people are spending a lot of their hard-earned money on this game. It needs to be fair. So it needs to be fair we can ask the questions, in these locked nations, are the packs cheaper? I think that's a legitimate question, and it needs to be proven, right? So, basically, are the packs equal? Otherwise, how the heck does somebody afford this kind of speed ups in this recruiting phase where, I did the calculation and that was 7,200 8-hour speed ups is needed for this kind of a score using T12 troops. And it's are the packs cheaper? Is gold cheaper? Those are some legitimate questions that I think needs to be asked and needs to be answered by Camel. Like, make it fair, unlock these nations, let people see it, explain your criteria for them having more mergers more frequently than other nations, and then stop this practice. And if you don't want to do that, it's fine. You can have different prices in the locked nations. If that's happening, I don't know. This is just a question, and I'm stating an opinion. And the request will be that if you have different criteria, meaning they have different criteria that's not evenly across the rest of the world, then let them match with each other and let us match with the unlocked nations. That's the request. And sorry for some of the redundancy, but I felt like I had to address these messages that were being sent by Camel, and trying to really scare me into silence. And that won't happen because I am stating an opinion, and I am raising questions. I am not spreading rumors. You can respond to all of these questions easily. I will give you a list of questions that you can respond to. And, that's the best way to address this. So next thing I will do is I will write to Camel and say, hey, look, can you send a representative and can we have a dialogue about this where we can go through some questions and, question and answers. And based on those, we can end the debate. And, but your job will be to answer, truthfully and answer in a way that satisfies not only, myself, but all the people that are, spending their hard-earned money on this game. The final thing I'll say is that, I just really wanted to thank everybody for the support that they've been pouring out. It's been wonderful to see, both from the community, on Discord, online, on the YouTube channel. And, really it is a movement that I have no power, but the people do have a power. And I do think that we can bring about change for Camel to be more forthright, transparent in their dealings. So really big thank you to everyone. This is Lumberg signing out. Hopefully you have a great weekend. The last thing I'll leave you with is that we will have a void battle. I don't know if we'll win. It's going to be tough, but hopefully we can show you how this saga ends between 457 and 285. I'll end with a disclaimer and a retraction. If I have made any kind of statement, to Camel that I believe that devs are changing game data, I do not think that is the case. I have never said anything to that point. I don't know if I have no facts to prove it. Everything that I've said has been observations of the data that I can see in the globes and the mergers. And what I'm doing is raising questions. I'm not spreading rumors. I'm not raising false information. And this is really just, it will be in Camel's best interest to send a representative that has the authority to share some information and to help, answer the doubts that all the users and the players and your customers have about, the fairness of your product. That's it, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. Good luck with your voids. I will catch you guys later.